When I was about 8 years old, I remember at school our history group was doing a module on the Second World War, and I did a little mini project on the D-Day landings, and it was like a moment of destiny looking back, because it began a process that has really lasted the whole of my life up until now, where I have been so interested and fascinated not in war but in the stories of the Second World War and the price that was paid for freedom. And when I became a Christian, I started to consider these amazing parallels between a spiritual battle and a physical battle. And all the way through that process, my fascination for Europe and for the battles that took place in Europe in the Second World War were growing and growing, and the books that I read and the films that I watched, the DVDs, the documentaries, this kind of thing. And then about 5 years ago, I started to get a lot of prophetic words over my life, and a lot of sense of God speaking to me, and one particular word about that God was going to use us as Miracle Street, along with, of course, countless others, to begin a spiritual liberation of Europe from the coast of northern France, which were, of course, the scene of the D-Day landings, which was the beginning of the end of the Second World War. And it was when the foothold into Hitler's fortress Europe was obtained, which began the reversal and the liberation of all those nations that had been occupied for 4 or 5 years. And so I started to come to places like this. And for those of you watching this who have seen the film Saving Private Ryan, you may remember the opening scenes of that movie, which is actually here. Actually just over there, actually, there was a red like tarmac path that they were walking along, the characters, which is literally a few feet away from here. And this is the American cemetery above Omaha Beach, obviously here in Normandy, and there are between 9,000 and 10,000 American graves here. It's a very somber place. It's a very sad place. It's a place of heroism where so many American lives are remembered, but it is a horrific reminder of the sacrifice of war. And so I believe that there is a sense that we've got to understand the history. We've got to understand what went on in history and the price that was paid, but really the freedom that was obtained through those terrifying years of the Second World War was a freedom that sadly didn't last. And here we are today, and Europe has become a spiritual wasteland. It is a desert in so many ways, and I really believe as an evangelist that we have to make a response to that, not to come as liberators, not to say stand aside, the English are coming, but to partner again with France and with Germany and with many nations that have been ripped apart throughout history, to stand together under the banner of the gospel to see freedom come to the peoples of Europe. So that has become a very, very key feature of the work and ministry of Miracle Street now, not just to run events and evangelistic projects that facilitate platforms from the gospel and help to build and plant new churches, but here also on the mainland of Europe as well, in the light of history. And I have a dream to take the gospel to the places that really became the killing fields of Europe. And we have a real passion in our hearts to work in France, but also in Holland and Belgium and Germany, and these places where terrifying battles have taken place and there is a lot of blood in the land. And to take the gospel to those places and to declare Christ, the light of the world, in those places, and to see churches flourish and many people, men and women and boys and girls, come into Christ. It's a real dream that is being formed in my heart and is very much in the hearts of the team.